ඉස්සර බොරළු පාර සුද්දතාර දාපු පාර අද අපි කවුරුත් යන්නේ අස්සේ කන්ටේනර් යන්නේ අලි තඩි බස් මැද්දේ ත්‍රීවිල් රින් ගන්නේ ඉගිලීගෙන පිම්මේ මැතියම තිලා යන්නේ නැතිනම් අයින් උනේ කුටි කන්නයි වෙන්නේ නැතිනම් අයින් උනේ පාරේ මොරටුවේ වඩුවන්ගේ වැඩ කිඩ දැක ගන්නේ කළුතර නවතින්නේ බෝධිය වැඳගන්නේ කලපිටියේ කලමාලු රසදිව පින්නවයිලු අම්බලන්ගොඩ නගරේ රූකඩ නටවන්නේ අම්බලන්ගොඩ නගරේ පාරේ දාලු ඉස්සර බොරළු පාර සුද්දතාර දාපු පාර අද අපි කවුරුත් යන්නේ වැහැලා කන්න බොන අය පිරිලා හොඳටම අඩි ගහලා සමහරු මග වැටිලා තාගෙත් සුරතලියන් එනකොට බැල්ම දමන් වයසට ගියත් මචං හිතනවා නම් මනං වයසට ගියත් මචං පාරේ දොඩමින් පල් හැලි එනකොට පෙළපාලි දේශපාලනඥයෝ හොරකම් කරන නිසා ඔයත් හොරකම් කරුවම හරිද? එතකොට ඒක හරි. අහස කඩාගෙන වැටුණත් ගණන් ගන්නේ අපි ලෝකෙටම ණයයි. ලෝක වලින් ආගම් වලින් හැදෙන්නේ රටවල්. රටවල් හදන්නේ නීති වලින්. කටික ගෙවන්න සිංගර් එකෙන් බඩු අරගන්න සුමිහිරි පානේ පදමට ගහලා
Right. I want to start with this iconic video clip that you saw with regards to Gypsy's latest version, Galupari. Now, why I took this is today we're going to talk about managing brand architecture as to how Gypsies started as a normal band in Mortua, and over decades, over say 4 decades to 5 decades, they mastered the industry. And Gypsies became a brand in Sri Lanka. Sunil Perera became a brand in Sri Lanka. Now, how they kept on this legacy of the architecture or managing brand architecture. The group got renewed um, over a period of time, and then Sunil um, left us, and then PL now leading the band. There were thoughts of disbanding Gypsies, but PL said, no, I'm going to continue as long as I can with the members of the band. So, see how architecture of a brand continues over a period of time. So that's about today's lecture as to how Gypsies became a brand of Sri Lanka, and they kept for decades their identity of providing super entertainment experience. And also, if you see, from Kurumitto to Jaye to Lunudehi to Pittikotapannone to Galupare, they have created their own songs. So when they go and sing, they sing their own songs. So they have a list of their own songs to sing. So that's Sunil's identity, being original, being the best original performer in Sri Lanka. Now that's a talent, right? So they kept Gypsies alive by being the most innovative, being the most original brand in Sri Lanka. Everyone knows their songs, their original songs. So what this teaches us, in a brand portfolio, each brand should be unique and should result in maximizing the equity of all the brands in the portfolio, and thus should not harm the equity of other brands. An organization can launch brands that satisfy a particular need of the target market or the offset competition. Now, if you look at, if I give you some experience from my side, which I have worked for TVS Lanka as head of marketing, we had four machines with us in the bike portfolio and the scooter portfolio. So we had TVS Metro as a flanker brand, and we had TVS Apache for high-end prestige, and we had TVS Scooty Pep, which is a cash cow, and we had TVS XL HD as the low-end entry or the entry bike model. So likewise, we have to manage brands in the brand portfolio knowingly what their role that it plays in the organization, and how consumers perceive these brands as per the revenue generation. Importance of understanding brand architecture is to build powerful brands. You need to understand the architecture to build powerful brands, lead to optimal allocation of brand building resources, provide clarity of offering so the brand identity is clearly perceived by the consumers, providing opportunity to extend the brand. Now, even for yourself, the brand identity has to be read by the consumer or the people that is in front of you. If not, you will get a very vague perception from the audience that you are going into. That gives way for a very scientific approach to brands, where you have house of brands and branded houses. So, what is house of brands? House of brands is the exact opposite of branded houses. Whereas a branded house maintains the focus on a single, well-known and consistent brand, right? So branded house, right? Branded house maintains the focus on a single, well-known and consistent brand. Whereas a house of brands, a branded house, that is house of brands. Branded house is the most common from the brand architecture. Major brands like Google and Apple are exemplary models of this type, wherein both have smaller sub brands, but all are marketed and operated under the umbrella of the parent brand. So inside this house of brands and going into branded houses, where house of brands is basically low relationship among parent brands and sub brands. So they don't have very close relationship, right? But if you become branded house, we have high degree of relationship among brands. So from house of brands to branded houses, you can shift your brand, and in the meantime, you have endorsed brands. If you have Virgin and Virgin Active, Virgin Radio, and Virgin Media, like so on and so forth, you have endorsed brands, right? And then you have sub brands as well. So that is what this Gridis is talking about, sub brands. So you have Apple and you have sub brands. So there's a very similar approach to endorsed brands and sub brands, which you have to be aware. So taking your brand from house of brands to branded house, or you can be at house of brands, you can be an endorsed brand, you can be a sub brand, you can be a branded house. It's up to the organization to decide on their vertical and horizontal strategy that they are going to take for branding, right? Now, rationalizing the brand portfolio, which is very important. Rationalizing can be done by any of the following ways: liquidation, merging, selling, milking, elimination, and consolidation. So each of these steps or the ways are basically designed with your verticals of branding, how it's going to work, right? Yeah, and brands in borderless world. You must see this advertisement. You must see this. Let me take you through. All right, let's see this.
Go. Go ride. Farther. Faster. Go wild. Doesn't matter. As long as you go. Ride together into that wild world. Chase those quiet moments that are anything but quiet. Go. Just go. Leave no mile unturned, and leave a trail of stories in your wake. It's time now to go. Ride forth. Roll the life into it. That's when the world will tremble and bend like the curve in the road as you go. Go now, because the roads you don't take are the only ones that will haunt you when you're going, gone.
Yeah, so that's Harley Davidson. Right. So brands borderless world. I mean, we don't have borders in this world, which when it comes to brands, right? Managing brands across boundaries, it has to be understood properly. Brands are found everywhere, and consumers are consuming the best brands available at their convenience. The availability of number of computer brands necessitates a brand to be present in a particular market. Global brands are looked upon with envy and have a uniform positioning, personality, look, feel, and advertising strategy across different countries. However, they are not exactly identical, but slight changes can be there in the product offering, communication, promotion, and etc. So now we need to know that how this has to be done, because branding across boundaries is very vital. You can't have now, I mean, personal experience, to send a pack of biscuits to Saudi or Dubai, you need to convert to their language. You need to tweak it a bit, and then you need to approach that particular market. Now, if you look at Nike factory stores, where is Nike is made, right? Reasons for going global. Let's see. Slow growth in the domestic market, like what we're experiencing now, and then we decide, okay, fine, Let's go global. Increased competition at home and saturation of the domestic market due to various players have entered into the market, and the market is already saturated, so you don't find space to put your brand through, so you go abroad. Opportunities for higher profitability in the global market. Of course, yes, you can exchange your brand to dollars. Tax incentives and government policies that promote international marketing. Yeah, you have free trade agreements now. Recently, China-Sri Lanka free trade agreement is bound to sign, and once it's signed, you can send your products there, or they can bring their products here. So tax incentives and government policies that promote international marketing is there on the cards. Even now we can see Tamili water or King coconut water is being sent abroad, right? And they can make humongous profits if you strike a proper deal. Identification of a similar market segment and consumer needs in different countries' market. Now, classic example, Unilever is going into across the globe. You have Unilevers in Fiji, you have Unilevers in Bangladesh, you have Unilevers in Sri Lanka. So identification of similar segments, it's here, but it can be exploited over there as well. Risk is diversified by being present in multiple countries. If you are, now, for example, micro EI electronics have recently gone into Mumbai for a factory. So the risk is diversified, because if Sri Lankan economy fails and if you can't run it, you can go global from Mumbai. Now they're already there. They have their own factory. So that's one way of looking at it. Advantages of global brands, going global, economies of scale, increased brand life cycle, so you can keep the brand momentum going, availability across the globe, perception of brand superiority because it's available in overseas. High prestige and status, of course, decrease in marketing cost because you don't have to put all eggs in one basket because you have a global operation and you can borrow certain materials from them to localize it here. Uniform brand image, barriers to entry, opportunity to tap similar segments, different geographical markets, enhance strategic flexibility. So these are some of the advantages of going global. Disadvantages of global brands, needs and wants. Now, McDonald's faced an issue in India, so they moved into 0% beef. That is changing needs and wants. Different usage patterns can hinder your brand growth because locally you are doing well. Say if you want to launch Highland milk in India, so then you have a problem because different usage patterns, because they are very familiar with Amul milk, so you'll face a bit of a problem. Or you might go there, but your brand might not kick off. It'll kick off, but not the way you want to. Difference in consumer response, right? You might be the giant in biscuits over here, or milk, or batteries, or whatever, but consumer over there might respond differently of taking your brand. Preference for local brands. So you go and you try to now. A lot of foreign biscuits came here. Loads of foreign motorbikes came here, right? But I mean, if you look at from the biscuits point of view, Munchie and Melbourne now shares of almost 90% of the market share. Right now, imagine if you're a global manufacturer of biscuits and you're trying to enter into Sri Lankan market, which two giants, right, at neck to neck, and the people are preferring for local brands rather than foreign brands, right? One is expensive, the other one is when you have Melbourne or Munchie at store, why should you take a foreign brand? So what convinced us was that McDonald's was willing to localize. They promised that there would be no beef or pork on the menu. Nearly half of Indians are vegetarians, so choosing a vegetarian to run their outlets here makes sense. Now that is what happens to McDonald's in India, and perfectly all right, they dropped beef and now they are doing absolutely well. So these are kind of disadvantages of going global. Challenges in going international. Of course, politico-economic factors, socio-economic classifications, social factors, legal aspects, technological factors, of course, cultural factor. If your brand is not aligned to their culture, then it's a bit difficult to penetrate. right? Local or global. A local brand is a brand that is available in one country or limited geographical area. A global brand, on the other hand, is a brand that uses a uniform marketing strategy and with a marketing mix in all the markets it serves. Right. So an organization, while marketing brands across boundaries, can either develop different brands for different markets, which leads to a number of local brands in its portfolio that have to be managed. So local or global, it's a decision that we need to take. Advantages of local brands: satisfying local needs, socioeconomic factors, flexible pricing, hedging risks. Gaining entry into a new market is possible because you are operating in a local brand, in a local arena. So, brand strategy, process for a borderless world. It always starts with the vision, resources, and skills to go international, or we call it the organizational drivers, right? Organisation එකට මේ skills දෙක තියෙන්න ඕනේ. vision එක තියෙන්න ඕනේ, resources තියෙන්න ඕනේ international market එකට යන්න. Step number 2, country markets to enter. Right now, if you want to enter into China with a brand, you need to have that political, economical, sociological, technological, legal background study. So we call it the pestle factors analysis. Then market scenario. Okay, where we are entering? කොයි වගේද මාකට් එක? like දැන් අපේ ලංකාවේ ලෙමන් පෆ් එක අපි ගමුකෝ. එතකොට ඒක ඕස්ට්‍රේලියාවේ ඔස්ට්‍රේලියන්ස්ලට ගන්න පුළුවන් වෙනවා. ඒතරේ මාකට් සිනාරියෝට අපි ගැලපෙනවාද? මෙහෙන් අපි එහෙට කෝපි යවනවා නම් අපි කොෆි බ්‍රෑන්ඩ් එකක් යවනවා නම් එහෙ මාකට්ස් වල ඒ කොෆි එක එහෙට ගැලපෙනවාද? so මාකට් සිනාරියෝ එක මොකද්ද මේ මාකට් එක අපි ඇතුල් වෙන්න යන්නේ? And then of course consumer analysis. So this fulfills the country markets to enter step. Then you need to decide brand drivers. It's global, local, brand identity and elements, brand image, brand positioning, brand architecture, which I told you last time. Then you are heading to brand entry strategy, how to enter, product decisions, price, place, and promotion decisions has to be made when you're considering the brand entry strategy. And then you enter into it, and then you review the activities and send feedbacks to these vital points of country market to enter brand drivers so that you can modify the strategy. Then review of activities, share of the best practices that goes back to the organization's vision to see whether it's in line with the vision agreed. So this is kind of managing brand strategy process for a borderless world. Critical factors for success. Standardization and customization is key in any approach. Support global brand building process. Build coherent international brand architecture. Assign managerial responsibility. Management teams manage brand champions, global brand managers, global brand teams. Now there was a team under me who's representing the global brand strategy, right? And they were consistently monitoring that. Share best practices and create cross country synergies, right? So this is kind of a very big task, and of course it has to be very ethical branding. It is imperative for organizations to be ethical to build it is imperative for organizations to be ethical to build credibility and long-term brand equity. That is absolutely a must. So you can read the rest. Ethical brand positioning, I mean, your brand has to be ethical, your organization has to be ethical, and it has to go through in a proper way, and brands need to keep up to that promise. Brands over time. Let's watch this clip.
Back in 1901, a cat named William S. Harley drafted a plan for a motorized bicycle with a small 7.07 cubic inch motor. He and his childhood pal, Arthur Davidson, started building the concept at the Northside Milwaukee machine shop at the home of their friend Henry Melk. After 2 years of blood, sweat, tears building the thing, they found that it wasn't powerful enough to pull the hills in Milwaukee without being pedaled by foot. Now, rather than saying, well, we tried, Harley and Davidson immediately began designing a motor with a larger 24.74 cubic inch displacement, the first true Harley-Davidson motorcycle. The machine's advanced loop frame pattern was similar to the 1903 Milwaukee Merkel motorcycle designed by Joseph Merkel. These changes moved their creation out of the realm of motorized bicycles and set the stage for future motorcycle design. They found a guy named Ole Evenrud from Norway who specialized in building outboard motors for boats to help them with the details of the bigger motor. The prototype for the loop frame was assembled in a shed located in the Davidson family's backyard, but most of the parts were actually made at the West Milwaukee Rail Shop on account that Arthur's older brother, William A. Davidson, was the tool room foreman over there. They would go on to build a recorded 5 motorcycles from the Davidson's backyard shed. The prototype was functional by September 8, 1904, when it competed in a Milwaukee motorcycle race held at State Fair Park. It was ridden by Edward Hildebrand and placed 4th in the race, making this the first documented appearance of a Harley-Davidson motorcycle in history. In January 1905, small ads were placed in the Automotive and Cycle Trading Journal offering bare Harley-Davidson engines to the do-it-yourself trade. But by April, complete motorcycles were in production on a very limited basis. The first Harley-Davidson dealer, Carl H. Lang of Chicago, sold 3 bikes from the original 5 built in the Davidson backyard shed. In 1906, Harley and the Davidson brothers built their first factory on Chestnut Street, later Juneau Avenue, at the current location of Harley-Davidson's corporate headquarters. Years later, the original shed was taken to the Juneau Avenue factory, where it would stand for many decades as a tribute to the motor company's humble origins, until it was accidentally destroyed by contractors cleaning the factory yard in the early 1970s. Production in 1905 and 1906 were all single-cylinder models of the 26.84 cubic inch engines. In February 1907, a prototype model with a 45-degree V-twin engine was displayed at the Chicago Automotive Show. Although shown and advertised, very few V-twin models were built between 1907 and 1910. These first V-twins displaced 53.68 cubic inches and produced about 7 horsepower. This gave about double the power of the first singles. Top speed was around 60 miles per hour. Production jumped from 450 motorcycles in 1908 to 1,149 machines by 1909. By 1911, everybody was building motorcycles. Some 150 different makes of motorcycles had already been built in the United States alone, although just a handful would survive the 1910s. In 1911, an improved V-twin model was introduced. The new engine had mechanically operated intake valves, as opposed to the automatic intake valves used on earlier V-twins that opened by engine vacuum. With a displacement of 49.48 cubic inches, the 1911 V-twin was smaller than earlier twins, but gave better performance. After 1913, the majority of bikes produced by Harley-Davidson would be V-twin models. In 1912, Harley-Davidson introduced their patented full floating seat, which was suspended by a coil spring inside the seat tube. The spring tension could be adjusted to suit the rider's weight. Harley-Davidson would use seats of this type until 1958. By 1913, Harley-Davidson was already pulling ahead of Indian and would dominate motorcycle racing after 1914. Production that year swelled to 16,284 machines. In 1917, the United States entered World War I, and the military demanded motorcycles for the war effort. Harleys had already been used by the military in the Pancho Villa expeditions, but World War I was the first time the motorcycle had been adopted for military issue. After the U.S. entry into the war, the U.S. military purchased over 20,000 motorcycles from Harley-Davidson. Harley also launched a line of bicycles in 1917 in hopes of it helping their motorcycle sales, but they were discontinued due to awful sales numbers. By 1920, Harley-Davidson was the largest motorcycle manufacturer in the world, with 28,189 machines produced and dealers in 67 different countries. During the 20s, several improvements were put in place, such as the new 74 cubic inch V-twin introduced in 1921 and the iconic teardrop gas tank in 1925. A front brake was added in 1928, although notably only on the J and JD models. In the late summer of 1929, Harley-Davidson introduced its 45 cubic inch flathead V-twin to compete with the Indian 101 Scout. This was the D model produced from 1929 to 1931. Riders of Indian motorcycles smugly referred to this model as the 3-cylinder Harley, because the generator was upright and parallel to the front cylinder. The Great Depression began a few months after the introduction of their 45 cubic inch model. Harley-Davidson's sales fell from 21,000 to 3,703 by 1933. Despite this, Harley-Davidson unveiled a new lineup for 1934, which included a flathead engine and Art Deco styling. In order to survive the remainder of the Depression, the company manufactured industrial power plants based on their motorcycle engines. They also designed and built a three-wheel delivery vehicle called the Servicar, which remained in production until 1973. In 1936, the 61E and 61EL models with the Knucklehead OHV engines were introduced. Valve train problems in early Knucklehead engines required a redesign halfway through its first year of production, and retrofitting the new valve train on earlier engines. By 1937, all Harley-Davidson flathead engines were equipped with the dry sump oil recirculation system similar to the ones introduced on the Knucklehead. One of only two American motorcycle manufacturers to survive the Great Depression, Harley-Davidson again produced large numbers of motorcycle for the U.S. Army in World War II, and resumed civilian production afterwards. Harley-Davidson, on the eve of World War II, was already supplying the Army with the military-specific version of its 45 cubic inch WL line, called the WLA. The A, in this case, stands for Army. Harley-Davidson received two Army-Navy E-Awards, one in 1943 and the other in 1945, which were awarded for excellence in production. As part of war reparations, Harley-Davidson acquired the design of a small German motorcycle, the DKW RT-125, which they adapted, manufactured, and sold from 1948 until 1966. Various models were made, including the Hummer from 55 to 59, but they are all collectively referred to as Hummers at present. BSA in the United Kingdom took the same design as the foundation for their BSA Bantam. In 1952, due to the rise of imported Japanese motorcycle popularity, following their application to the U.S. Tariffs Commission for a 40% tax on imported motorcycles, Harley-Davidson was charged with restrictive practices. In 1969, American Machine and Foundry, or AMF, yeah, that's right, the bowling pin company, bought Harley-Davidson. They streamlined production, slashed the workforce. This tactic resulted in a labor strike and lower quality bikes. The bikes were expensive and inferior in all notable ways to Japanese motorcycles. Sales and quality declined and the company almost went bankrupt. The Harley-Davidson name was mocked as Hardly Abelson or Hardly Drivable and Hogley Ferguson, whatever that one means. In 1977, following the successful manufacture of the Liberty Edition to commemorate America's bicentennial in 1976, Harley-Davidson produced what has become one of its most controversial models, the Harley-Davidson Confederate Edition. The bike was essentially a stock Harley with the stars and bars on it. In 1981, the bowling pin company, AMF, sold the Harley-Davidson to a group of 13 investors led by Von Beals and Willie G. Davidson for $80 million. Harley-Davidson claimed that Japanese manufacturers were importing motorcycles into the United States in such volume as to harm or threaten to harm domestic producers. After an investigation by the U.S. International Trade Commission, President Ronald Reagan in 1983 imposed a 45% tariff on imported bikes with engine capacities greater than 700 cc. Take that, you little metric wannabes. Rather than trying to match the Japanese, the new management deliberately exploited the retro appeal of Harley-Davidsons, building motorcycles that deliberately adopted the look and feel of their earlier machines and the subsequent customizations that owners of that era would have put on their motorcycles. Many components such as brakes, forks, shocks, carburetors, electrics, and wheels were outsourced from foreign manufacturers and quality increased. Technical improvements were made and sales began to increase. Imagine that. By 1990, with the introduction of the Fat Boy, Harley once again became the sales leader in the heavyweight over 750cc market. At the time of the Fat Boy model's introduction, a story rapidly spread that its silver paint job and other features were inspired by the B-29 bomber. The Fat Boy was a combination of names of the atomic bombs, Fat Man and Little Boy. But that's like some people's opinion, man. 1993 and 1994 saw the replacement of the FXR models with the Dyna, which became the sole rubber mount FX big twin frame in 1994. The FXR was revived briefly from 99 to 2000 for limited special editions, the FXR2, FXR3, and FXR4. Construction started on the $75 million, 130,000 square foot Harley-Davidson Museum in the Menominee Valley in June 1st, 2006. It opened in 2008 and houses the company's vast collection of historic motorcycles. Harley-Davidson hired the British legend Elton John to headline their 100th birthday party September 1st, 2003. Anticipation had been building for weeks about who would play the final night at Harley's party. The company kept the partygoers in suspense by keeping the headliner a secret. The opening acts of the festival and the party included the Doobie Brothers, Kid Rock, and Tim McGraw. And then Elton John finally took the stage as the secret headliner, and people were pretty shook. Elton John was not what many wanted or expected. Partygoers were not expecting a gay British piano player to headline a birthday party for a company that's customer heritage is rooted majorly in blue-collar roughnecks and alpha male culture. Whatever, though, I'll listen to Elton John on my Harley. Rocket Man! On February 2nd, 2007, upon the expiration of their union contract, about 2,700 employees at Harley-Davidson Incorporated, largest manufacturing plant in York, Pennsylvania, went on strike after failing to agree on wages and health benefits. During the pendency of the strike, the company refused to pay for any portion of the striking employees' health care. The day before the strike, after the union voted against the proposed contract and to authorize the strike, the company shut down all production of the plant. The York facility employs more than 3,200 workers, both union and non-union. Harley-Davidson announced on February 16, 2007 that it had reached a labor agreement with union workers in its largest manufacturing plant. The strike disrupted Harley-Davidson's national production and was felt all the way in Wisconsin, where 440 employees were actually laid off, and many Harley suppliers also laid off workers because of the strike. Still think socialism's a good idea? According to Interbrand, the value of Harley-Davidson's brand fell by 43% in 2009. That's $4.34 billion. The fall in value is believed to be connected to the 66% drop in the company's profits in 2 quarters of the previous year. On April 29, 2010, Harley-Davidson stated that they must cut $54 million in manufacturing costs from its production facilities in Wisconsin, and that they would explore alternative U.S. cities to accomplish this. The announcement came in the wake of a massive company-wide restructuring, which began in early 2009, and involved the closing of 2 factories, 1 distribution center, and the planned elimination of nearly 25% of its total workforce. That's about 3,500 employees. The company announced on September 14, 2010 that it would remain in Wisconsin. Today, Harley-Davidson is still an American company, making classically styled American motorcycles out of parts that are produced and manufactured in places that aren't America. Harley-Davidson enthusiasts are loyal to the brand, super loyal, with licensing of Harley-Davidson logos accounting for almost 5% of the company's net revenue. That's about $41 million just for the logo, just for t-shirts and stickers and other dumb things. Harley-Davidson established the Harley Owners Group, or HOG, in 1983 to build on the loyalty of Harley-Davidson enthusiasts as a means to promote a lifestyle alongside its products. The HOG also opened new revenue streams for the company, with the production of tie-in merchandise offered to club members exclusively. There are over 1 million motorcycle riders that are members of an HOG. Speaking of HOG, the word hog, synonymous with Harley-Davidson. Well, here's why. In 1920, a team of farm boys called the Hog Boys were winning race after race after race. They had a hog as their race team mascot and would take him for a victory lap around the track after a win. On August 15, 2006, Harley-Davidson Incorporated had its New York Stock Exchange ticker symbol changed from Harley-Davidson Incorporated, HDI, to HOG, HOG. Harley-Davidson made a name for itself by giving the American people something we didn't know we needed more of: freedom. But it's not just wind in your hair, white knuckle, 110-mile-an-hour freedom. I'm talking about a relationship between man and machine, being unshackled from the cage that is the automobile. There's always been something alluring about danger since the dawn of man. Harley-Davidson created the means to supplement that allure while looking like a total badass while you do it. I mean, let's face it, Harleys are sick. And yeah, there are Japanese bikes and Indians and Triumphs that look mean, but not like this, or this, or this, or even this. You can argue all you want about your metric cruiser or Indian, and while I respect those manufacturers and won't knock their appeal, there is no substitute for a Harley-Davidson. Every single cruiser-style motorcycle has ripped off Harley's designs throughout the decades for good reason. They're tough, they're classic, they're mean, they're big and bad, and they always will be.
Right. So that shows how a brand evolved from its inception to today's world. So brands over time, if an organization is like a garden, that brands are like plants that have been planted there. Just like plants need constant watering, weeding, and pruning, the brands need to be constantly monitored for changes in the external and internal environment. So you need to manage brands immaterial the year, it has to be managed lifetime. One of the most important issues facing brand managers is how to revitalize the brand and keep it relevant and current. Honest and rigorous dedication is required to build strong brands. Brand challenges. Of course, the quality aspect is comes into play. If you look at Maliban, they still win awards for quality and they still maintain quality. Changing consumer trends, introducing technology advanced products, growing number of private labels or retailers owned labels. If you look, you go to Kiehl's and you can see Kiehl's own brands are coming out, and brands becoming generic, right? Like Mari Biscuits, it's becoming very generic. Lack of effectiveness and consistent communication, yes, it's another part that people lose track, and keep the brand young. If you look at Lux, Unilever's, the brand is still young, right? Okay, give me a minute.
Where does beauty really begin? Rose pink with vitamin E,
Nourishing.
luxurious honey in honey orange,
The vibes.
moisturizer in almond white,
Moisturize.
herb extracts in herb green,
Deep please.
each with its own real-time fragrance. The new international collection. Let beauty begin.
Novalax beauty ingredients hatak saha vitamin E samagin sandamen ditulana mohonak
සඳලතා පායන මල්වෙටගාව ඉරිමාවුදේ සඳුට උපමා ඔබයිලඳුනි මටයි
Novalax sandamen ditulana mohonak.
See how they revitalize brands. I mean, it's coming from ages. No other brands can do that. I mean, it's a pretty lovely scenario to see how Unilever's maintain their brand stances at any given time. So keep the brand young is one of the best ways of taking the brand to the next level, and of course a brand challenge. So reinforcing brands, it always starts with the brand vision, what you want to do, and then brand marketing strategies and tactics has to be considered next to make the brand revitalize. Consumer response to marketing activities is key, and then consumer brand attitude and brand knowledge need to be improved, need to be reminded, and of course new marketing activities has to be implemented. Then it creates brand awareness as well as brand image, and brands reinforce in the mind of the consumer set. So this is how Lux, Lifebuoy, Surf Excel, all these brands have come from generations to generation by reinforcing it, right? So brand revitalization, brand turnaround, other rejuvenating strategies to the brand portfolio is product innovations, relaunching the brand, repositioning the brand, new uses of the brand. You can change the distribution strategy or change or take a different turn in the terms of distribution. Multiple placements on shelves in shop flow. You can see if you go now to Kiehl's or Apico or Cargill's, you can see how brands being placed in multiple locations to take your attentions, and of course effective communication. So this ends the brand in borderless world and brands managed over time. Of course, we have discussed this at the I have given this for you to discuss, and you need to be prepared for Thursday's discussion. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of the night.